you the very best in your loss. This is a work session, so for anybody who might be watching tonight, this is a little more informal meeting for the council. We do not make decisions at work sessions except to give direction to staff. This is a bit of a new format here at the library, so I've got a few introductory comments before we jump into our first item, our legislative update for the evening. As I said, this is only the third time that the Billings City Council has met in person since March 16, 2020. So a few introductory comments would be appropriate. I hope you'll be patient with us if we do have any technical bugs this evening. One, the microphones and speakers for all the computers in this room and tablets and other devices must be muted or turned off to avoid feedback here in the community room. Two, there's only one microphone picking up sound in this room, the large white box in front of me here. So please speak clearly and with a firm voice so that everybody can hear on Zoom and in this room. There's no amplification in this room, so it is important that you speak loud enough that people can hear on the other side of the room. The microphone is hot at all times and it's very sensitive, so it's very hard for council members and others attending on Zoom to hear if there's more than one person in this room speaking at any time. In-person attendance by the public is limited to about 15 people here in the community room, but we do have additional room out in the lobby. There's a television in the lobby that is broadcast showing the meeting on Channel 7 TV in real time. To slow the spread of the coronavirus, Governor Gianforte's directive from February 12, 2021 encourages all Montanans to wear masks or face coverings and to follow CDC social distancing guidelines and best industry practices. To that end, and for the time being, masks or face coverings are required for all persons attending the meeting in person, and council members and staff will do our best to comply with that rule. However, masks do make it more difficult to understand when someone is speaking, so a speaker may remove his or her mask if providing public comment at the podium or council members and staff are speaking from their seats. Since I'm often interacting with council members and staff, I hope you'll forgive me if I sometimes don't always replace my mask. The good news is that I and many of the other council members and staff are now fully vaccinated. I encourage all members of our community to get vaccinated to protect themselves, others, and our economy. Lastly, about public comment. During any public comment period, I'll ask that persons here in the library go first and use the podium. You'll need to speak clearly and loudly, as again, there's no amplification in this room. Second, persons who are attending virtually using Zoom need to register in advance following the instructions that appear on the cover sheet in front of each City Council agenda. That's available on the city website. They will need to use the raise your hand feature on Zoom to tell the clerk that they're ready to speak and that their microphone should be unmuted. People in this room will be able to hear but not see the person who is commenting on Zoom. Further instructions on how to attend virtually are available on the agenda cover sheet. If you have any questions, you can also call the clerk during normal business hours at 657-8210. That number again, 657-8210. With that, that concludes my introductory comments. So we'll move to item 1, legislative update, unless our city administrator, Chris Kukulsi, has anything in the way of introductory comments.
We do have Greg Dorrington with us tonight to give us a brief update, and we'll just get right into the agenda. So we can pass it over to Greg and take it away.
Okay, and so Greg will do that. I'll just call attention to the council of our agenda tonight. We've got 5 items, each one with public comment. We know several will be a lengthy discussion. I'm guessing that each one is going to take us at least 2.5 hours. It's 5:30 now, so sort of a best case scenario would be to complete the meeting around 8 o'clock. Realistically, it'll probably be after that, but hopefully we can shoot for something before midnight tonight if people are cooperative in that way. Okay, Greg Dorrington, Crowley Lake Law Firm, helps us out in Helena. I'll turn it over to Greg. There you are. Greg, it's all yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Greg Dorrington with Crowley Fleck. Happy to be here with you again. I will try and keep my comments relatively brief, but I thought what I would do is just give a brief overview of where we are in the session and then give an update on some of the key bills that we've been tracking for the city. And then we'll round it out with an update on the recreational marijuana bills. Can everyone hear me okay? Maybe just a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Well, let's dive in. So we are starting to wind down the session. Leadership is telling us that we'll likely wrap up before May. So we're looking at maybe another week and a half to 2 weeks left in the session. So there's not a whole lot of new bill hearings coming out. There are a few resolutions and study bills that are still being heard in committee, but most of the action is being in the floor sessions on both the House and the Senate side. We lost a couple of days, actually today and on Friday, there was a positive test for COVID from a lobbyist in the building. You may have seen that in the news, but it caused the House and the Senate not to gavel in on both Friday and today. So we had those 2 days slightly off. There were still meetings that were held, but they had to do their contact tracing and everything. But the calendar's been adjusted. We'll be back to normal tomorrow, so House and Senate will be back in session. Right now, I mean, this is kind of the time of the session where we do really have to be vigilant, even though there's fewer hearings and it seems like the pace has kind of dropped down a little bit. What happens is there's a lot of free conferences and conference committees where bills that have gone from one house to the other are not concurred in, so that they create these conference committees to work out any issues. And it's in these conference committees that sometimes additional language can get stuck in there. So we really have to be kind of observant and track all of those things just to make sure language or these bills don't get amended in a way that could be negative or at least have some implications to the city. So we got to just keep excuse me, watching out for those. In terms of the bill update, let me just start with our priority bill, which is the Public Safety Bill, HB 578. This is the city's bill that we've been working with Representative Terry Moore on. And this would require DOC to notify the court if they haven't accepted a DOC commit within 5 days of sentencing. And the whole idea behind this is just to get DOC to take, and DOC is Department of Corrections, just for everyone's reference, is to take responsibility and custody of its commits so that there's more room in the local county prisons for local offenders. So this has been a big issue, of course, in Yellowstone County and across the state. And this bill has actually, it's had really great support throughout the entire process. It has passed every stage so far without a single no vote against it. So it's passed the House, it's in the Senate, it went to Senate Finance and Claims just recently, passed out of that, and it's going to be scheduled for its third and final reading in the Senate tomorrow. So we expect no surprises, and we expect that to be approved by the Senate. So stay tuned for that. A couple other big bills that are going on right now are of course, HB 2, which is the budget bill, which funds our state government, and then HB 632, which is the big bill called the Beast Bill that distributes the ARPA funds, those COVID relief funds that we've talked about. With respect to HB 2, that's passed both the House and the Senate, and then through a procedural maneuver, the House sent it into a free conference where it's going to be sitting, and it's going to be able to be amended through that free conference committee to address any developments over the next couple of weeks or so. So we'll continue to watch that. The ARPA bill was amended on the Senate side. This is HB 632. And it's now sent back to the House to see whether the House is going to concur in those amendments. And while the general framework of the bill is mostly the same as we've talked about, it's got these advisory committees that are going to assist with allocations and awards of the money through that bill. I did want to just kind of highlight a couple of the key points that the Senate changed. So first, on sewer and wastewater projects, they capped the grants for any one project at $25 million. And then they decided of the $450 million that is available in total, at least 150 million of that would go to local governments. And then from there, the rest of it can go to state projects. So there's a minimum of 150 million that will go to local governments. And of course, you need to qualify for those and have some match funds and skin in the game. So all those things we talked about last time. On the communications and broadband front, they actually bumped these funds up from 250 million to 275 million. They allocated some funds just for audit purposes to make sure that this federal money is being used for its intended purposes. They amended it to include performance measures with quarterly reporting, so just looking for some accountability attached to those funds. And then there's an amendment just to give the governor some additional authority to redirect appropriations as needed as more federal guidelines come in. So if money was originally going to be allocated for one project or one purpose, and then federal guidelines come out that say, no, you've got to use it for something different or something, that the governor has the authority to make those changes. So those are kind of the key revisions that were made on the Senate side. Again, that's now going to the House to see whether they concur in those. My sense is that the House is probably procedurally going to say, no, we don't concur in it, which would send this to another free conference so that they can then continue to tinker with the bill as needed with, the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days left in the session. So other bills to note, HB 121, the governor signed this into law just last week. This is the bill that provides that during a declaration of emergency, a local governing body, so like your county commission, can hold a public hearing to amend, rescind, or modify an order from the local board of health or from a health officer. So the idea behind this is just to provide some more accountability for health orders, and that would be held accountable through publicly elected officials. HB 255, this is a bill that would do a number of things to modernize the sewer and water district laws. We've been tracking that, and one of the issues there includes clarifying how a municipality and a county would get to appoint a board member seat in the event of a vacancy. And so this bill, as currently drafted, allows for direct appointment by the mayor for the municipal seat, and then also the county would have its own direct appointment seat on that board as well. It's cleared the House. It was amended in the Senate, and now it needs one more vote tomorrow to get across the line by. Tomorrow's actually the deadline for it to transmit to the other house. So that one will be voted on tomorrow. HB 436, this is a public safety bill. It's a bill that would have removed the authority of local governments so that they could no longer regulate concealed or open carry of firearms in public buildings, like the city hall or courthouses. And this bill, we did oppose this bill. It was ultimately tabled in committee just late last week and is likely dead. SB 260, this is the bill that I believe we talked about it last week or last time we visited. This would provide for a per se regulatory taking if a state or local rule or regulation decreases a person's private property value by 25% or more. This could have led to significant liability for state and local governments to pay just compensation for these types of issues. In particular, land use regulations, zoning, things like that were sort of on the table for rules and regs that local governments pass that may impact private property rights. So there was a real big concern about creating some liability to state and local companies. And what happened, this bill is now dead. It was amended on the House floor by Representative Mercer, part of the Billings delegation, and he actually exempted out local governments and then created a whole new framework to evaluate these types of rules, sort of a look before you leap type analysis about, hey, is this regulation or is this rule going to impact private property, and if so, how? So it wouldn't require that just compensation piece, but it would require an analysis. And ultimately, that amendment took on the bill and completely changed it, but then the bill was voted down. So SB 260 is now gone. We do still have SB 385 out there, which is the special district bill that I believe sparked some discussion last time. It is still in House tax. It has not been voted out just yet. We expect House tax to take executive action on it tomorrow. So we'll see what happens in that committee. But just to kind of go through what the bill actually does is, number one, it creates some limitations on assessments moving forward. So say, for example, a special district created by resolution, the district can't increase the assessment as stated in the resolution by more than the rate of inflation. So you're stuck with that assessment moving forward in essence. And the rate of inflation is measured by CPI, the Consumer Price Index. It's a little bit different for special districts created by referendum. You get a little bit more leeway there. If you have a special district created by referendum and you're clear with voters at the front end of what your assessments are going to be over time, you're not going to be limited to CPI for increases year over year. So you've got a little bit more leeway there, but you have to run it by the voters, obviously. Special districts created by resolution under the bill would dissolve 13 years after inception. So there's a time, kind of a cap on special districts by resolution. But before dissolution, you can extend the district by resolution or referendum. So it doesn't necessarily have to lapse and terminate. You can extend it, but you would need to do that under procedures provided by law. And this bill would apply not only to all districts moving forward if the bill were to pass, but also to any district created by resolution and protest on or after July 1st, 2009. So it's going to capture some of those districts that are currently in existence as of 2009. And then the bill, there is an amendment out there that would make the bill effective July 1, 2021. So what does this all mean for existing districts, and in particular the Billings Park District, which I think is the only special district here that would be implicated by this bill? So my understanding is that the Billings Park District was formed in 2011 by resolution, and so under the terms of SB 385, it would terminate by operation of this bill 13 years later, so in 2024. So that's sort of the date we would be looking at there. And of course, the district could be extended by resolution or referendum before the actual termination date. So that's what we're looking at with SB 385. We'll see some action on that probably tomorrow and in the waning days of the legislature. And then last of all, I just wanted to touch on recreational marijuana. I know that's been a hot topic. There were a whole bunch of bills introduced on the House side dealing with implementation of the recreational marijuana program. And the House passed all of them. And it basically said, here you go, Senate, you sort it out. And so the Senate has been busy doing just that. They've formed a special select committee on marijuana law just to hear all of these bills and decide how to move forward. Senator Friedel of Billings is the lone Billings delegation voice on that committee. But they heard all the bills last week, and then they've slowly been kind of whittling away at them. There were 4 or so, I think there were 4 total that were kind of the prime potential movers for implementation of the program. All 3 of those, or 3 of those now have been tabled in committee. So there was one that taxed wholesale transactions, that's gone. There was one that would allocate a bunch of the money to the unfunded portion of the pension system, that's gone. And then just today they tabled another one, HB 670, which was kind of the main competitor to the governor's bill. And so now HB 701 is, as of today, the lone bill standing for recreational marijuana. And what the plan is to work on amendments to that bill this week. The committee met today, went through a whole raft of conceptual amendment ideas to HB 701. Topics included, how's the revenue going to be allocated? How is the home grow process going to work? The black market issues, edibles, is it going to be an opt-in or an opt-out system when it comes to local government? Jurisdictions, expungement, is there going to be a local option tax for counties and cities? Is that going to be available? So these are all ideas that are currently being vetted and discussed in the committee. We expect to start seeing some amendments pop out by tomorrow. And then the committee hopefully will start voting on those tomorrow and into Wednesday potentially. And then they will take executive action likely on Wednesday and get this bill moving out. Since HB 701 is kind of it is the lead bill actually now, I did want to take a second just to talk about the opt-in system that it creates. So it's a little bit different than the recreational marijuana initiative. So under HB 701, a county can opt in. So a county ordinance or resolution can approve any or all the types of marijuana businesses. So there's a bunch of different types of categories of marijuana businesses, right? There's the cultivator, there's the manufacturer, there's the medical dispensary, transporters. So the county can decide which, if any of those, they want to allow within their jurisdiction. And if they do that, the qualified voters of the municipality within that county can conduct an election to prohibit that type. So if the county says, yes, we want to let this type of business in, the electors can kind of come over the top. And the municipality can also come in and say, no, we don't want those businesses to be allowed in our community. So if the county opts in, the municipality can still opt out. If the county doesn't take any action at all after the bill is passed, the municipality can opt in. But then if the county opts out and says we don't want any of those businesses, the municipality cannot opt in. So it leaves the municipalities kind of without a voice in that final scenario. So I just wanted to mention those different kind of opt-in, opt-out scenarios. What's in the bill now might not be in the bill tomorrow, might not be in the bill on Wednesday. So it's really hard to say where this is going to be headed. We still are waiting for the amendments to be drafted and shown to the public. So with that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think I will we'll stop there and pause for questions or thoughts, feedback. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for your thorough description. Questions for Greg? Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. Greg, I had asked last time about the codification of the rules related to remote meetings, and you said the legislature was trying to figure it out. Can you update us on that as well?
Right, yeah, thank you, Councilmember Shaw. So that bill was SB 393, I believe, and it was tabled in committee. So that bill is not going to be moving forward. So I don't think there's going to be any legislative guidance in terms of how to conduct remote meetings. At least at this point, I think everyone's we're sort of stuck with the AG opinion in terms of how that should move forward. So we have no codification at this point.
Thank you. Other questions for Greg? Any other questions for Greg? Councilmember Dees.
This isn't for Greg, but it has to do with the legislative updates. This is actually for Chris, and it has to do with the 632, what they call the monster bill, as far as all the money they're distributing. Chris, do we have projects in line ready to apply? because I know smaller cities, they may be more nimble, they may already have their projects list ready to apply. It seems like we take a little while to decide what we're going to apply for. Can we, have you got something you're going to be presenting to us so we can start kind of picking and choosing what we're applying for?
So the mayor and council, so the timing of this is coming together right along with the budget presentation. So next week we'll get the overview. What we're using as a staff is our capital improvement plan. So I do have on my dry erase board, I kind of have what in those CIPs based on various areas, where it's water project, a wastewater project, public safety. Our plan would be to bring that discussion to you guys ultimately as to what would we apply for using those that primary adopted document, as well as our current budget, I think, to prioritize things. At the end of the day, you'll make the call, but we will be, the time will be of the essence. We're waiting on what the rules are, which it sounds like we're down to less than 2 weeks, clarification there, and then applications we're being told will be due by the end of this fiscal year. So we really will just have about 30 days, maybe 45.
Well, excuse me, Mayor, Chris, follow up on that?
Sure, Councilmember Neese.
And I'm glad you're using the CIP because a lot of those projects are fully vetted by council already and agreeable. But there are some projects we've looked at, for instance, I believe it's the 21st Street underpass. There, we've talked about that needs a lot of work at that we have not put anywhere on the CIP, but we know that's an important project. And mainly it's because we don't have the money to do that. And this is one way we could probably get some state money to work on that. It's connected to a state road. They've got some state work they're going to do there, and that could be a good ability to join what they're doing that into this project. So things like that, I think we would like to see. I think I mentioned once an email about the lead pipes that are in the city. We have those. That's an ongoing project, but if we got that all that money fully funded and we could use the other money that we use for it now into something else, we could get that project done and out of the way. We've talked about the inner belt loop, the water, sewer, and stormwater up there, and then there's other places in the city too that could use some of that. And throughout the Heights, there's a lot of different areas that don't have water, sewer, or stormwater and things like that. So, and it all has to do with the money aspect of it. And those are projects that are not on the CIP because we don't have the money. So are any of those types of things that we've talked about over the years, even prior councils that some staff know about, that could be put into this request?
You know, I don't think there's anything automatically that would be taken off consideration. Some components to think about is matching dollars. The state so far has indicated, and we've actually testified in favor of the notion that local governments need to have kind of skin in the game. And so you do need to be thinking about what would be our resource that would go into match projects. The mayor actually, with his seat on the Montana League of Cities and Towns, I know he's been a part of several of the conference calls that have gone on with the league as well. So I don't know if the mayor wants to add anything, but it's really been anticipation of really just the deadline, when the applications are going to be due. But we haven't seen much yet as far as detail as to what we can apply for or how the rules will work.
And Chris, I'll have also a comment on this topic because it's a really important one. And I second everything that Councilmember Neese said, but there are also additional commissions that are not capital related. So Greg Dorrington can probably fill us in what those different commission categories are. I think there's about 5. Some deal with social services and others, perhaps in areas that the city doesn't normally tread, that we may still be entitled to those dollars. And so I would certainly second Councilmember Neese's suggestion that staff and the council start looking with a microscope, a magnifying glass, and a fine-tooth comb to see what categories we might have some projects for. The rescue mission, the Unified Campus, for example. I know I've received several calls just in the last week from other organizations in town who think they've got a great idea of how these dollars could be used. So there isn't going to be any shortage of demand, would be my prediction. So we need to start putting our heads together. Maybe I could just ask Greg Dorrington to remind us what those different commissions are and how they break down by subject matter. Greg, could you do that?
You bet, Mr. Mayor. So we've got, first of all, the Infrastructure Commission, and that mostly has to do with capital projects for both state and then local water and wastewater. You've got the Communications Commission. That's going to be covering things like broadband, cell towers, public safety, radio, things of that nature. And then you've got the Economic Stabilization Commission. They're looking at housing assistance, small business credit initiatives, workforce training, local economic development entities, things of that nature. Then, I mean, kind of the other subject matter areas are there's a health committee, and that's going to be more of a committee than a commission based on basically Section B activities relating to the budget. So those are all your kind of DPHHS health-related activities. And then there's an education segment as well. So a significant portion of these funds are going to head towards education related activities. That, I think, covers most, if not all of them, off the top of my head there. I'd have to pull back, but I think that's most of them.
Thank you very much. As I get information from Montana League of Cities and Towns, and I'll try to forward that to the council and to staff, but they're kind of in the same position that we are. Everybody's waiting for the Treasury guidelines to come out. That was predicted to happen certainly before the end of May. The Treasury Department is saying they're not in a big rush because they want to get it right. They don't want to have to issue amendments to their directives later if they can avoid it. So sometime in May, we'll be getting better direction from the federal government. Other questions for Greg? I don't see any. So Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate your and Amy's representation in Helena.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll open up for public comment on. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Yakwich?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I wanted to ask Greg a question after public comment, so I didn't want to release him until after.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hey, Greg, are you still with us?
I am still here.
Okay, hold
I won't
on.
leave.
Don't go anywhere. We will open up for public comment. Is there any public comment on item number 1? Please take the podium and tell us your name and address, and ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Kevin Nelson, 4235 Bruce Avenue. Since we went into projects, there is a project coming up. That's the hop.
You want to step back just a little bit? All we can see is your chest. There you go.
There you go.
There. So there's a project coming up. Most likely, I don't know your agenda, but you're probably going to approve this, or has to be approved, the Hollowell Lane project, probably at the next business meeting. That has about 1.3 million in stormwater money, or what going to need for storm drains down there, along with other water going up. So here you have a shovel-ready project ready to go. If necessary matching money is needed, you're going to have the TIF money to match it. So if you're looking for a project that can get right out of the gate, that's one, because that one is ready to go right now. So I'm hoping that, and I'm sure city administration has that on their radar screen, but I would just remind the council that, time is an essence, and you need a project. There's a project that should meet all of the criteria for that $1.5 million of stimulus, or the money there. So thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Any other public comment here in the library? And then we will go to any Zoom callers.
Christy Drake, I'm at 2950 Walden Place. And regarding infrastructure projects for this for the ARPA bill. We do have a project that would be perfect, and it's the Stagecoach Trail. It was part of the Build Grant application, and it is pretty much ready to go as far as you know, we could get it engineered and funded with about $3.5 million, and that is infrastructure. So it would be a huge piece of Billings, you know, the economic vitality of the city and making it more a more quality of life place to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment from here in the library? Don't see any. So has anybody called in using Zoom? Denise, do we have any public comment on item number 1 on Zoom?
I am just looking. We have 3 attendees on our Zoom call, but I am not seeing anybody raise their hands. Again, just a reminder that if you want to raise your hand and you've called in by phone, you need to press *9, and that will give us give me the idea that they want to raise their hand to speak. So I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand for this item.
Okay, thank you, Denise. We'll close the public comment period then on item number 1. Councilor Yakwich, you had a final question for Greg Dorrington.
Thank you, Honor and Council. Very quickly, I attended 3 meetings this last week, recently. Suicide Prevention Coalition, Yellowstone County Behavioral Health Advisory Board, and a DEA meeting. And a lot of the concern was when this recreational marijuana comes out, all of them are talking about behavioral health issues. And we know that THC, when some of us were in high school and college, is a lot different than now. Actually, I heard it's like 30% more. I mean, extraordinarily high. It's going to have a huge impact. So, one, I'm hoping that we're more aware of that, as well as, you know, other issues that are impacting us on behavioral health. But Greg, I guess, are they talking about that in the legislature? That will there be money going towards behavioral health? Are they aware the ramifications of this in our state?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Yakwich, it's a great question and a really challenging topic. It is being discussed, absolutely, and the committee actually sat through presentations from DEA and listened to their input in the process. I mean, they are stuck, however, with an initiative that was approved that they now need to figure out a way to implement, and they're trying to do it for the most part in the safest way possible. So there are issues that come up in terms of, say, for example, edibles. That was a hot topic today and last week. Of, you know, what are there certain percentages of, you know, how high the THC levels can be in those edible products? Should we even allow edible products? Things like that. So it is absolutely a topic that's being discussed in those committees. Where it shakes out, I'm not entirely sure. I wish I had my crystal ball. But then on the topic of, you know, where is the money going to address the impacts from implementing this program? And that's also a wild card. I mean, right now they're looking at, under 701, having about $6 million going to what's known as the HEART Fund, and that's the fund that the governor you've probably heard him talk about, which would be directed towards addressing some of those impacts, treatment, things like that. And there's actually an amendment out there that will be prepared to completely remove the HEART Fund from the bill. So we'll see if that moves forward or not, but it remains a very big open question how the impacts of this program and the implementation of recreational marijuana is going to be dealt with. So we just have to see how that's going to happen. I know one of the issues raised by Senator Jacobson just today in committee was the local option piece. So to allow local governments to add a 5% local option tax on the sale of recreational marijuana so that they can then have some income to deal with the impacts to their community. That was originally in HB 701. It was stripped out they're looking at putting it back in there. So I think that's one good option for at least generating some degree of revenue on a local community level to address impacts, whether it be treatment, behavioral health, funding, public safety officers, things like that. So that's kind of where the discussion is headed, but it is very much being talked about, yes.
You want to just follow up on that, please?
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Andre. I appreciate that, Greg, because we're well aware that increase in marijuana use creates paranoia, and we're already dealing a lot with behavioral health in our community. So I'll just segue to my second question is that we heard, and it's kind of buffer into it, is that we heard that LSD is now in the middle schools here in Billings through our DEA report. I'm concerned about House Bill 398, and we've corresponded a little bit about that, vaping and all that. Could you just quickly give me an update on that, and if the council, just 2 sentences on what Senate Bill 398 is?
Yes, absolutely, Deputy Mayor. So Senate Bill 398 is a bill that would limit local governmental authority to prohibit the sale of alternative nicotine products or vaping products. So it is both a local control issue and a public health issue. This bill came up previously as HB 137 in one form, and it was ultimately defeated. Then came this bill, and it's by Senator Ellsworth, and his whole point was, hey, look, vaping products are a legal product in the state of Montana, so local government shouldn't be able to completely prohibit their sale. Under the bill, you can still, reasonably regulate locations and other facets of the vaping industry. You can have regulations, but you can't put a vape shop next to a school or something like that. But you wouldn't be able to completely prohibit it. So that's what the bill says. Opponents at the hearing voiced very strong opposition in terms of some of the issues that you were just getting at, Deputy Mayor, which is what are the impacts of vaping products, alternative nicotine products on developing minds? So it was very much focused on the younger generation and how vaping products are often flavored in certain ways to be targeted and marketed to our youth. Having youth utilize those products could significantly impact brain development. So that's kind of where the opposition went. It's sitting right now in Senate business. The hearing's been held. We don't know just yet where it's headed. I suspect, frankly, that it's going to get out of committee and then go to the Senate floor, where I think it's a little bit more of an open question whether it moves forward or not.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you very much. Chris Kukulski and Councilmember Ronnie.
Mayor and Council, I know, I'd encourage you and frankly any of our citizens, as Craig has talked about, House Bill 701, so that last piece of legislation around the sale of marijuana, it's going to be very difficult to give feedback on detail because it's a moving target by the moment. But I think in generalities, they need to be reminded, our local legislators need to be reminded there will be a cost to local government. Absolutely, whether you support it or not support it, for some context, if I were to say, remind you that our law enforcement police department budget about $30 million, that's just the police department budget, I would be extremely surprised if a third of that cost can't be directly tied back to alcohol. When I was at the dinner last week with Judiciary, the state of Montana collects about $40 million in the back of a napkin on alcohol taxes. We collect zero. So there will be a cost associated with our community. I would encourage us at a minimum that they need to be talking about collection dealing with impact. That impact not only at the state, but also at the local government level. That, at the simplest form, would be a message I would continue to make and ask you to make to those legislators to be conscientious of as they make these decisions in the next 10 days. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ronnie?
Thank you. Actually, my question is very similar to a comment that Chris just made and Councilman Yakowicz. Greg, you gave us 4 different committees / commissions that has been broken down at the state level. So in regard to just exactly what Councilman Yakowicz and City Administrator Kukulski was talking about, do you know if the state legislature is going to allow local government to decide what's defined by health and what's defined by communication? For example, you put public safety and communication, and then you put some DPHHS stuff and education within health committee. So for example, if we have a mobile crisis unit or some type of diversionary programs that could be considered public safety, but they also could be considered related to health, is the local government going to be able to decide how those are defined, or is that going to be defined by the state? Thank you.
Councilman Rowney, wonderful question. I think that's actually going to be defined by the federal government. Since
Okay.
these are ultimately ARPA funds, and the federal government has identified at least some of the buckets to which these funds can be used for, the purposes to which they can be used for. And then the state has attempted to create commissions that kind of align with those buckets of money in silos. So I think that's where we're waiting for more Treasury guidance to come out to put a little bit finer point on what that money can be used for. So I think that's part of what it is. We have some rough ideas and guidelines about what this money can be used for, and that's why we're talking broadly about communications or health and education. So I think that additional guidance will come, and it'll